Hi, this is Moo. If you have a freighter pilot on a second account, he's probably in an NPC corp so he doesn't get war decked. And if you're like me, you prefer not to just undock, hit the autopilot, say a few Hail Marys, and hope for the best. This means you get to enjoy the spectacle of your freighter aligning for almost a minute at every jump point. Sometimes it's not so bad, but sometimes it's late at night, you just want to get to bed, but you want to move your huge cargo hold full of metal scraps and plex to Jita before you crash. What you need is almost any pilot from your other account, any crappy frigate you have lying around, a few webs, and a limited engagement timer. Here I'll be using a Merlin that's been in my hangar for so long and had autocannons and rocket launchers. I kept the micro warp drive in place and filled all the other mid slots with webs. And the rest of the slots don't even matter. You can use any cheap frigate you want to with this. Slasher will probably work a little bit better just because it's slightly faster, but it doesn't really matter. Now, I'm going to undock the freighter and I'm going to undock the webbing ship, and the basic idea here is that you issue a duel challenge to get a limited engagement between these two ships. And once that duel is initiated, you can apply your webs, and that will throw you into warp faster. Here's the problem on the first jump, like when you undock. When you undock, you're actually moving at greater than your freighter's maximum speed. So your align time is much, much longer. When you do this from a gate, you start at rest, so you get thrown into warp almost instantly as soon as you hit the webs, assuming you've built up, like, say, 20% of your maximum speed towards the outgate, which only takes a few seconds. So as you can see, there's really no effect on this first undock, assuming that you just hit the warp button. Now, you can think, well, I can get away with this if I simply stop the freighter. And you can. When you stop the freighter or get at very low speed, you can throw yourself into warp. The problem is that freighters are so slow that it takes a very long time for you to slow down. So if you save any time at all, it's going to be pretty negligible. It's for this reason that I think it's barely even worth it to try and do this from the undock your station, unless your gate is directly in line from the station kickout. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and cut ahead to a gate so we can see this thing work the way that it's supposed to.
Warp drive.
Here's one.
The Stargate denies you permission to jump for the moment.
You should get used to that. Your webbing ship is going to have an aggression timer, although your freighter will not because it doesn't have any weapons or electronic warfare. So once your freighter is in warp, you can go ahead and warp your webbing ship to the next gate. It'll probably get stopped because of the aggression timer. But because the freighter's warp so slow, you'll probably get through well ahead of it anyway. On most jumps, I found this to be the case. Most of your time loss, since you're getting rid of a bunch of the align waiting, is going to be actually in warp. And it's for this reason that I would recommend that your freighter pilot get a warp speed implant, even if you're not using this webbing technique. Unless you're one of those autopiloting guys, in that case you may want to get a velocity implant. But I don't want to spend an hour making, like, 10 jumps. So because I've used the web already, that limited engagement timer is still going. It's good for something like 4 or 5 minutes. So I've started my alignment as soon as it becomes visible. I'm going to zoom towards him with the Merlin, and as soon as I'm in range, hit him with the webs. And sometimes I only have time to put on one web. And there are some webs, and bang, my guy is already in warp. I've just saved, like, at least 35 seconds off of this leg of the trip just by doing that. Now, you can do it with a rapier. Most guys who do this trick with in-corp alts recommend a rapier, and that's because as soon as the guy undocks, you can web him from wherever you are. You can also try to use a daredevil if you just want the extra web strength to help you out a little bit. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. I'm just doing it with a sub 1 million ship because, as you might know from my other videos, I am very cheap. Yeah, I mean, it seems kind of silly when my freighter costs $1 billion by itself, plus whatever the value of the cargo is, but I don't know. I may try it a little bit later. I mean, for now, any frigate with 2 or 3 webs, it seems like it works just fine. And I don't really see the point of you know, getting a rapier with a bunch of Fed Navy webs just to move some stuff around high sec when people will probably make more money a lot easier just by ganking the rapier. Anyway, I'll take a look at one more jump, and then we'll head on to our destination. Alright, so now we're going to be moving through a 0.5 system where it is actually important to have the fastest line that you can get. This will not save you from ganks. Absolutely, it will not save you from ganks. If you are dumb enough to move stuff around high sec in a freighter, cargo value like 4 or 5 billion ISK, you deserve to get killed. And I will laugh at you when you wind up on the top 10 list at Eve Kill. The reason that you get into trouble by not aligning quickly in a 0.5 system, or just by autopiloting actually, is that it gives people more time to realize that there's a freighter there. It gives them more time to get a scanning ship in place, find out what your cargo is, calculate whether it's worth it or not, to have 10 tornadoes waiting at the next outgate when you're aligning. So it's worthwhile to move faster no matter what. Alright, let's go on to our destination. And here we are, in the Graveyard of Freighters, Jita, heading for Jita 44, also the Graveyard of Freighters.
Warp drive.
Get ourselves in a warp. Get ready to tackle ourselves in a warp. Here we go. And beautiful. So now I'm just going to dock the freighter, drop off the stuff I want to drop off my alt so we can help on the outbound trip. And this, by the way, is why I said at the very beginning, issue the challenge from a chat window, or from your freighter alt using a chat window, not using the overview. Because I guarantee that as soon as you undock and people see that message saying some dumbass freighter pilot has accepted a duel challenge from anyone else, you will get other duel requests. And naturally, you want to just ignore them, but, you know, you want some kind of insurance against fat fingering. So probably the safest way to do it is to issue the challenge from your freighter pilot to your webbing alt from a chat window or a fleet window, and then ignore everything else that comes in. So how useful is this trick? Well, I'm going to go ahead and estimate that it saves me about maybe 30 seconds or slightly more per system that I'm crossing. And that adds up if you're making very long trips. Not so much on a short trip like this one, which is, 10 jumps or less. But if you do a lot of inter-regional hauling, it can really add up. So I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.